Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Today we're going to do another recipe from the side of the fridge. Bundle of recipes clipped together, lives on the side of the fridge in our kitchen in our house. And today we're going to do a recipe from this little piece of paper that I cut out of the newspaper. And it's for rice pudding. Now, it's not the greatest rice pudding in the world. Not the greatest rice pudding at all. Oh, am I going to have 4 cups? 4 cups, 4 cups, 4 cups. I'm going to say that's close enough to 4 cups. I'm not going to put in another bag. So this recipe comes from a restaurant on Yonge Street in Toronto, a couple blocks south of Bloor, that closed around year 2000. It was in a building that had a bunch of tenants over the years. Eventually it was bought out by the Church of Scientology. So the Church of Scientology then took over the entire building, had all of their stuff, and right in the middle on the ground floor was this little greasy spoon called Brothers Restaurant. Year 2000 or thereabouts, they didn't get their lease renewed and it closed. And shortly after, I clipped this out of the newspaper. Amy Pataki, a food writer for, I think, the Toronto Star at that point, put this recipe in for their rice pudding. Now, for me, pure nostalgia. Brothers Restaurant was one of those places where you could go as a broke student and load up on cheap, nutritious food. Maybe it wasn't the greatest food, but there was lots of it. And it was the kind of place where you could go and you just feel comfortable. And I really liked going there. And I liked the rice pudding. So we're going to make it. I put 4 cups of milk into this pan. I'm going to bring this up to a simmer. Okay, the milk is almost at a simmer. So I'm going to add in sugar and converted rice. So I'm not sure why it calls for converted rice. I wouldn't think that a restaurant would use converted rice like this, but apparently they did. Converted rice does have higher nutritional value than regular plain old white rice. Although, you know, if you're looking for nutritional value in rice pudding, you might be looking in the wrong spot. Now you just bring this to a simmer. You don't want a rolling boil, just a simmer, and you're going to stir it every once in a while to make sure that the milk doesn't scorch to the bottom of the pan and to keep the rice from clumping together as it cooks. And somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes, just when the rice gives a little bit of chew, but it's not fully cooked yet. We move on to the next section. Okay, this is coming along nicely. So we're going to move on to the next section of the recipe, which is to beat this egg with a little bit of vanilla and then temper it with the milk. Some vanilla. Give that a bit of a whisk. And then a little bit of the hot milk and rice mixture. And then we whisk that into the mixture here in the pot, and we cook it for maybe another couple of minutes until it starts to thicken. And that's it. I think one of the reasons I was drawn to this recipe, and I've used it over and over and over again, is simplicity. It really doesn't take much effort to put this together. Now, you could put this into little ramekins. They served it in little ramekins or glass dishes. There's a raisin component if you want to put the raisins in. I never put the raisins in. And so, you know, served in little ramekins, you'd let it cool in the ramekin and sprinkle some cinnamon on top. I'm going to leave it in this bowl where I can scoop it out. I will come back again and again and stir this as it cools to keep the skin from forming on the top. I sometimes don't do that because I do like the skin on top of rice pudding. So once this has cooled, we'll come back for a tasting. Okay, here we go. Rice pudding. So I stirred this a couple of times in the fridge while it was cooling down. There's no skin on top. A couple of scoops for Julie and I.
Ooh, rice pudding, custard.
A little bit of cinnamon on top.
Okay, so there's no cinnamon in it.
No, just goes on top. And do you want a raisin?
Well, see, it's interesting. I like raisins. Where's side of my this? Okay, but they're not cooked.
No.
So I don't know. I'll try one in a moment.
Okay. It's a very stout rice pudding.
I assumed it was a custard-based rice pudding, but it doesn't feel that way.
There is an egg in it, so it technically is kind of a custard. But the thickening mostly is from cooking the rice in the milk. And it's converted rice. So the rice has a slightly different chew to it than if you were to use regular white rice.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely a more solid piece of rice. It's not a mushy rice pudding.
No, you chews back a little bit. I kind of like it.
Tastes great.
It's not the be-all and end-all of rice puddings. I've had better rice puddings, but
I've also had worse
yes,
rice puddings. So
I mean,
I'm happy with this.
After this place closed, you had to go to Mars up at college and Bathurst.
I did like a Mars rice pudding.
Mars rice pudding was really good too, and sadly it's closed as well. So.
Yeah, I like the raisins, but I prefer them cooked.
So this is a solid piece of Toronto nostalgia for me, of the Greasy Spoon place that you would go in and get loads of food, and it was really cheap.
Yes. Yes. Okay, you have to stop eating.
Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you again soon.